What we have here is a major form of degeneration. Today is October 8th, 2021. I'm going to give my version. I just read Anna von Reitz's, one of her later recent articles, Ice Water Cocktail. And it, again, her mind and my mind are working on the same project. Unbeknownst, I didn't know she wrote that article, but it's kind of been saying what I said in my last video and what I'm going to talk further about, but from a totally different perspective. After continuing to analyze this entire thing, I realize that the people in this country have become so degenerated that the words have lost their meaning. So those 5 words that I gave last week, people are still going, well, what's the difference between government and corporation? I don't know. I thought I went into that in simple English, but like I say, simple English doesn't seem to cut it anymore. It's like it's become a John Galt time. Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged. People started to say, who is John Galt? Or they put bumper stickers on their cars. Who is John Galt? And it was a way of expressing a topic or an understanding or a state of being that was beyond the ability to say it in just a few words or a few paragraphs. And Rand attempted to do this in a whole book. Well, this is the Ayn Rand moment, and I'm going to refer to a video I made about the update on Planet Mirth that seemed to get a lot of hits. I was just trying something different, and it got more hits than my usual videos. So I'm going to give an update on Planet Mirth. And for those people who didn't see that, Planet Mirth is a planet on the far, far edges of our galaxy. And on this planet Mirth, they had sports events, and one of the events, or competition, sports competition, was racing. And they got in these machines. Some of them went on the land, and some of them went through the air. And you had to put your flag on it. And of course, you couldn't just put your own flag, which would be the truth. You had to put the flag of the controllers, of the owners, because most people on Mirth are slaves. And they're even called chattel. And so you put the number, just like you would put a number on a cow's ear or a sow's ear or a sheep's ear, and that number would identify you, and you'd be able to trace all the history of that cow. And so they put these on the the transportation methods. And but in the race, when you raced these, you didn't have to put a plate on. And one of the drivers that was quite famous was being interviewed after the race, and the people in the audience had become so angrified, they had reached the John Galt moment, that when a few people started to say, "Go, Brendan, go, Brendan," more of the audience started saying, "Fuck Joe Brandon." But they said it differently. So the news announcer said, "Oh, listen to them saying, 'Go Joe Brandon.'" And you could clearly hear, well, maybe there was a few people that were saying that, but the overwhelming mass of the spectators were yelling, "Fuck Joe Brandon." And wherever this president would go, people would start chanting, "Fuck Joe Brandon." And because everything was rigged on Mirth, on the planet Mirth. The election results were destroyed, and all the officialdoms, who were all part of the corporation that were owned by the people who owned the president, because the president was not a governmental president. He was a president or CEO of one of the subdivisions of the corporation. So the movement had started. And what eventually happened is the powers that be, the elite, the sovereigns, had control of so much that finally people started to taking these plates, these flags, off their things that transported them around, that they traveled around in, and they just simply put "Fuck Joe Brandon" on their license, where the license plate. Or they would say "Fuck Joe Brandon" or "Go Joe Brandon" if they wanted not to be swearing. So the subtlety is "Go Joe Brandon" was a symbol for John Galt, to supporting John Galt movement, and to hell with the president of the corporation, because it's the corporation was all fraud. And that's basically what has happened on this country. And a lot of the media, the alternative media, is putting out, "Oh, the white hats and the military are going to save us." And some wise people who understood or knew history knew that this is the same thing that happened in the Soviet Union when the Bolsheviks took over. The stories would go out, "Oh, the military's going to come save us. The military's going to come save us. The white hats are going to come save us." Well, who are the white hats? Nobody ever saw them. And the military, they were all sold out, at least the top leaders are sold out to the corporation. And all the patriotic, high-ranking military leaders had been tossed out, just like they were tossing out some of the lesser but higher ranked colonels maybe and majors that are not pushing the jab. Now, when I was in the military back in Vietnam days, we had a push to take vaccines, and just my own studies and my own reading of my body, the first time I had one of those vaccines, I realized it was deleterious to my body. So I refused to take it. And eventually I had to go to see a first sergeant to do penalties. So, well, at the time I was in the medical field, and a lot of the doctors that I worked with were also refusing to be vaccinated. And so I just went in with some of them, and so all these majors and colonels showed up to this first sergeant for detail punishment for not getting the vaccine, and the first sergeant couldn't believe it because all these high, he was just a six-striper, with a star on top or something, his first sergeant. And all these majors and colonels and captains were showing up. And, well, he wasn't going to give them penalties and detail work, to go out and mow the grass or paint trees white or something. And so when he came to me, I just said, I'm with them. And so he just let us all go. Well, it's a little bit more serious now. They're putting some patriotic colonels in the brig, and because of other such things of not going along with the command structure in the military. But eventually, I've said that I was going to contact the further-ups in the local sheriff department because of the fraud that is going on, but it reminds me of back when I was in Texas. I was driving without license plate, without driver's license, because I couldn't get one because I wasn't a resident of their forum. So anyway, I got put in jail, and it was a city municipal jail. And when they brought me up for a hearing, this guy comes out and he's reading me the charges, not driving with a driver's license and everything. And I go, well, who are you? And he said, oh, I'm the bail bondsman. And I went, what? So here is this bail bondsman doing what the judge is supposed to do, and he was reading me my rights and charging me with not driving. And anyway, I just refused to deal with him. I said, I'm not dealing with a licensed bail bondsman. Anyway, so they put me back in jail, and I sat there for a week. And finally, some of the people, especially the judge, realized, maybe we did something wrong, because I was trying to say something, and actually some of the deputies or some of the older guys in the police station were starting to take my side. And anyway, make a long story short, they let me out, and I read the code book, and actually in the state of Texas, if you were going to meet bail, the bail bondsman could read the charges against you. But you see, I wasn't making bail, see. So then a judge was supposed to see me within 48 hours, which she never did because she was goofing off and getting a big paycheck. So anyway, I soon recorded a multi-million-dollar charge against their risk management office, and it sat for at least 3 years on the desk, and I tried to get lawyers and whatever to help me with this, but since it was against the city, nobody would touch it. But for the rest of the time I was there, which was 4 or 5 years, I drove around the entire county with no license plate on, and none of the cops would pull me over in the entire county. And eventually this record of this charge was lost and totally, and everything about my arrest was gotten rid of on the records, just like they're doing with the voting in Maricopa County, and like what they're doing with Newsom, the recall vote in state of California. They just lose the records, and nobody's supposed to question it. 16 minutes. So where am I going with this? The system and everybody in it has become so degenerated that they don't understand English, or they don't really understand what a representative form of government is. Which I want to go back. In the early days, you needed a representative form of government in this country because it took weeks to go to the capital, to travel, and there wasn't any communications except by horses in the 1700s and the early 1800s. So you needed to appoint a representative. But today, with all electronics, you don't need a representative. You can be your own people, government by the people and for the people. But no, you just keep out, just like a bunch of cows going to get their food at the same time every night in the barn, which is owned by the owners of the farm. You just keep repeating, and all the conservative radio program people, they won't put this on. They don't want to touch what a representative form of government is, or a democracy is, because once that becomes corrupt, or once more people are thinking they're getting a benefit from the government, you're outvoted. And under democracy, if your side loses the vote, you have to go along with the losers. So that means you get suckered in with getting butchered when you're fat enough and the owners want to eat you or sell the meat. And the regulations are strangling the people who want to advance the system. I want to talk about a guy that was back in the 1930s or 1920s. I think his name was Stubblefield or something like that. Anyway, he lived outside of Murray, Kentucky, Murray. And he developed actually the first cell phone, or the first non-wired phone. And I've looked at a picture of one of his demonstrations there in Murray, and actually he had part of the city of Murray at that time hooked up to these phones, and they were working better than the phones that were being invented by, claimed that were coming on by the people who are given the credit now. Anyway, I was looking at this picture, and there was only about 25, 30 people watching this demonstration of this phone, and it was said to be way clearer than the other phones that were being developed at that time. And I noticed in the background there was this tall, lanky fellow, and I looked real carefully, and gee whiz, that was Nikola Tesla, and he had traveled all the way from New York City to western Kentucky to see this show. Anyway, just like, well, maybe Nikola Tesla was murdered, but Stubblefield, or whatever his name was, ended up starving to death. And his neighbors, when they went in to take care of the body, there was these dish shape, like a dome, a dish, and they were putting out a little bit of heat, and they said it was real cozy in the house. And neighbors had also reported that the trees around his house would light up at night softly, and he didn't have any electricity. What he was using was earth energies, and he was igniting the air or exciting the air, the atmosphere around, and was using that lights just like the ancient Egyptians used to use in the pyramids and underground. And that's why you don't see any soot, because they ignited the air with those big bulb-shaped things that you sometimes see in the hieroglyphs. They could excite the air, and they didn't need. This was a higher form of advancement, if you want to say that. And these use the earth, and they actually use less energy. And I bring that up just as a thing that you're missing out, because the powers that be don't, just like J.P. Morgan didn't want Nikola Tesla when he found out this advancement. He knew he couldn't control that, just like the powers that be don't want to lose control of what they have over the people. And that's why they license plate you and license you, all you chattel, so they can control you. And now they're giving you the jab to control you even more. So there, it's 22 minutes. I know I drifted, but not really, because these things can't come about because you're too degenerated. The system is too degenerated. So maybe if you went out someday and would call it Joe Brandon Day and took off all your flags on your cars, or enough of you did it, sure, they'd put a few of you in jail, but when, can they put everybody in jail for not flying the war flag? The flag with the stripes going this way is the peace flag. And the flag with the stripes going this way is very similar to the flag that the East India Trading Company used. See, I don't know. Something's going to have to come to a head. Some of you are going to have to take off your black hats. And yes, I'm wearing this because you don't even recognize a white hat when you see it. You're waiting for some other white hat, some dream that somebody else is talking about, and you don't. You're so degenerated, you're so the school system is so ruined everybody that it's pretty bad. Bye.